I'm going to do a video on my Beach Boys Shutdown Volume 2 collection. Shutdown Volume 2 was released in the early part of 1964. It was right after the British invasion hit, after the Beatles had kind of taken over the airwaves. And the reason it is called Shutdown Volume 2 is because there was an album, it was a compilation of car songs, and the Beach Boys were just one of the artists that was featured on that compilation, and that was called Shutdown, and that was released by Capitol Records in 1963. And so for some strange reason, they decided to title the first Beach Boys album of 1964 Shutdown Volume 2. Makes no sense, but a lot of what Capitol Records did with their catalog or with their artists in the 1960s didn't make sense anyway. See my videos on the Beatles if you want a little more information about that. But essentially, Shutdown Volume 2 was the first opportunity that the Beach Boys had to respond to Beatlemania and what was going on there. And it's still a Beach Boys album that has a lot of filler. There are tracks on here that are pretty insubstantial, and yet the stuff that is great on here, the classics on here, are really untouchable. The first track is Fun Fun Fun, which of course is a summertime classic. You have The Warmth of the Sun, which was written immediately following the JFK assassination. Don't Worry Baby, which was Brian's homage to Phil Spector. And Keep an Eye on Summer, while not rising to the level of those songs, is probably my other favorite track on here. There's a couple of car-related songs, This Car of Mine, In the Parking Lot. Occasionally the Beach Boys would try to do these comedy tracks if they didn't have enough songs, I guess, to put together a full album. And in this case, it's Cassius Love versus Sonny Wilson. So basically, in the spirit of the Cassius Clay and Sonny Liston fight, which happened in the early part of 1964, this is basically, and it's scripted, there's no getting around it. It's a scripted argument between Mike Love and Brian Wilson where they're making fun of each other's voice and they're just kind of going at each other in a playful way. It's interesting to listen to once, but it's not something that you're going to go back to. And if you're like me, you skip over that track every time you listen to this album. Shutdown Part 2, which is the companion piece to the original Shutdown track. This is just an instrumental. They do a cover of Why Do Fools Fall in Love. There's Denny's Drums, which is another instrumental for Denny to showcase his drum playing. And then they do a pretty miserable cover of Louie Louie on here to close out the album. This is my mono copy of the album, and it's in pretty decent shape. There's not any ring wear, there's not any seam splits. It is really, I would almost call it near mint. There's a little bit of fraying here at top, but nothing terrible. Considering this album goes back to 1964, this probably sat on somebody's shelf for a long time. This is the inner sleeve. It doesn't show any of the other Capitol artists, but it does have Capitol Records along the border here. And then this is what the vinyl itself looks like with a classic Capitol rainbow label. And I don't know if this is the original inner sleeve, to be honest with you. It could be a sleeve from another Capitol album that just got put in with here, although judging by the condition of that album, I would tend to believe that it wasn't touched very much. The album's in pristine condition, so I imagine that would be the original inner sleeve. Same for this one. I don't know how I lucked out and got two really near mint copies of this album, but it is just really fabulous, the condition. So somebody didn't play this very much. There's a little bit of a kind of a stain on the back, but other than that, it's really in fantastic shape. This just has a plain white inner sleeve. It doesn't have... there's a record store by my house that actually sells old inner sleeves from albums, so I may have to pick one up just to kind of make this a complete collection here. This is the stereo label for Shutdown Volume 2. And then the next vinyl copy that I have of this, so Capitol Records, in the late 1960s, the Beach Boys fell out of popularity. Their records weren't selling, and just with kind of the whole, you know, the late 60s peace and love and the hippie movement and all the changes that were going on in the late 60s, the Beach Boys sales had dropped significantly. The Beach Boys had gotten into some litigation with Capitol Records over some royalties. So there just was not a lot of good blood between Capitol Records and the Beach Boys. So Capitol deleted the Beach Boys catalog in the late 60s, early 1970s. So everything except for, I believe, the Little Deuce Coupe album was out of stores, couldn't find it anywhere. And then in the 70s, when the Beach Boys had their revival after the Endless Summer album came out, Capitol decided to re-release the Beach Boys catalog. However, they weren't going to do it without messing with the track listings and also with the song or the album titles themselves. And so what you got in the 70s was an album called Fun, 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 which looks in every respect like the Shutdown Volume 2 album, except you got Fun, Fun, Fun here. And the back cover also is different. They took out the other albums by the Beach Boys down here. They took away the little, I don't know what you call it, the back of the album liner notes here are also missing. And they did delete off of here the that track, the Cassius Love versus Sonny Liston. And everything else on here, I believe is the same. In the Parking Lot is also not on this version of the album. So they took out 2 songs. So there's an even 10 on here. And this is actually, this album is sealed, but it is on the green Capitol label. It's this one is a promotional copy. And they did the same thing with the Today album. The Today album is called Dance, 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 released in the 1970s. And the Summer Days and Summer Nights album, Capitol retitled just simply California Girls. So again, you know, Capitol Records not making the most sound artistic decisions for the Beach Boys. On cassette, this is the only version, I believe, that you can get of, and I'm sorry about the glare, but this is a cassette version of the Fun, Fun, Fun album, which I believe was released either late 70s or early 80s. This is a sealed copy. Still has a price sticker from Target on it. And I don't plan on opening it anytime soon, but this is what it looks like on cassette. Now the CD versions, I've got 2 different versions of it. This one is part of the twofer set that Capitol released when they were releasing the Beach Boys on CD. This is the remastered version. There is a version of this that has, you know, the regular black plastic inside spindle hole or whatever you want to call it. And this is the remastered version that I believe came out in the early 90s. So it's part of the Surfer Girl, even though Surfer Girl came out in early 1963 and they didn't follow sequentially. This is how they packaged them together. And then they do have the back cover here on the back of the inside booklet. And then there's information about each of the tracks and a little comment about from Brian Wilson about the making of the Shutdown Volume 2 album. And it does sound really good on CD. And this was the stereo version. And then there was also a release where they put both the mono and the stereo versions on one CD. And that's what this is. Got the original back cover here, and then another color photograph of the Beach Boys here. And I believe this version was actually the cover of an album that Capitol released to, they compiled all of those tracks that they left off the 70 reissues. So you'd find the Cassius Love and Sonny Wilson versus Sonny Wilson track on there, In the Parking Lot, and some other tracks that they had left off the reissued Beach Boys albums. And that one was called, I believe, Be True to Your School. And the CD itself looks like this. And there's a very thin booklet in there. I mean, we're talking like only one, I wouldn't even call it a booklet, it's more like an insert. It just has the track credit information, the back cover, original, and that is pretty much it. So that is my Shutdown Volume 2 collection. I enjoy it just to listen to it. Again, there's some filler on there, so it's not going to be as strong as some of their 1965 Beach Boy releases, but still an enjoyable album. You know, it sort of takes you back to 1964 and the relative innocence of those times. But I'm curious what you think of the Shutdown Volume 2 album, and if you care to comment below, I would appreciate it. If you're not already a subscriber, I'd appreciate that as well. And thank you again for watching.